I'm trying to answer the question as honestly as I can. I realize I'm under oath. I asked for a tuna salad on wheat bread. I didn't realize it was white bread until just a few minutes ago. Any further questions, Mr. Colt? Fair enough. The witness will now reverse the entire legal process and put a question to the defense. More coffee?
No, one'll be plenty.
Oh, I thought you were offering me another sandwich.
Stephen, what's wrong?
Nothing. Mike Rossi has given me a completely new cross-examination. I was just doing some thinking on my strategy.
Well, it's like trying to look the wrong way through a one-way window. All morning I kept looking over at you, wondering what you were thinking and feeling. I couldn't tell.
That's known as counselor's camouflage, or how to keep the prosecution guessing.
Made me feel as if I didn't really know you at all.
Oh, that's silly. Don't start talking like a neglected wife.
Oh, not neglected. Just shut out.
Well, whatever the symptoms are, I know the cure. When court recesses this afternoon, we'll drive out to the country for dinner. Iced, leave for a milk by candlelight. How does that sound? And I promise, you won't have any trouble reading your husband's mind. I love you, Betty.
I know you do. It's just that every time I see you here sitting next to Lee Weber, it just doesn't seem real. Stephen, you don't belong together.
Are you going to start picking my clients?
You know what I mean.
Make it sound like a special courtesy to Martin Peyton.
Stephen, don't.
You know, it would be like him to call you back and suggest you give it another try. Get Stephen off the case, Betty. That's an order.
Stephen, I don't need Martin Peyton to tell me that this is all wrong for you. I've seen the way you looked at Lee sometimes as though you hated and despised him.
It's not required that a lawyer like his client. I didn't have to like Rodney to take his case.
Excuse me, am I interrupting something?
Oh, no, come right in. How soon do we resume?
How about 5 minutes? Oh, please finish your lunch.
No, we've finished, thank you.
Stephen, now that we have a few minutes, I wanted to check on the list of witnesses that you have. I had a list of people who oh, here it is. If you could just run through that, give me a rough idea of the order you intend to call them in. I assume you'll be saving your mother till last, and cross your fingers that she'll be back in time.
Well, I didn't intend to call her for a couple of days.
Oh, then she told you when she planned to return?
Well, these Boston trips only take a day or two.
Oh, it's just a routine trip. I thought it might be something really urgent for her to catch that plane right on the heels of your summons.
Poor mother. She really hates to fly. I had quite a job getting her on that plane, but it was the only sure way to get her back in time.
Well, I told my deputy I was sure you knew all about it. No need to call you.
Mr. Fowler.
I'll be right with you. Just leave the list on my table when you're through.
Why didn't you tell me you'd subpoenaed your mother? What had you intended to do, Stephen? Tear her apart in the stand like you did Rita Jacks?
Well, it doesn't look like I'm going to get the chance.
Oh, I am so glad your mother got away, Stephen. I hope she never comes back.
Leslie. I wasn't expecting you. Well, come in.
I decided to take my chances on finding you here and getting past the conscientious Mrs. Cord. Where is she, by the way? Usually the sound of my voice is enough to bring her running.
What do you want with me, Leslie?
I'm sorry, Martin. I didn't mean to pry. I was just wondering if you'd given any thought to a replacement for Steven.
Not too late.
If it's because you haven't been able to come up with the right man.
You have some suggestions? I've been waiting for that.
I have several names you might want to consider.
No, thank you, Leslie. Like any good executive, I prefer to select my own advisors, with all deference to your title as manager. However, I do appreciate your help. Please don't let it discourage you from making future suggestions.
Well, I have one to make right now.
Oh?
I see you've done nothing about replacing Catherine's portrait.
Oh, but I have. I had it destroyed.
Destroyed?
Yes, it was much too badly damaged to be restored.
We talked about having it copied. I even volunteered to have it done for you.
I'll never forget your offer, Leslie.
Well, I thought for the sake of Rodney and Norman.
You'd like to leave them some reminder of their mother. But not as she looked at 17, Leslie. Why, Norman is already 2 years older than she was when the portrait was painted.
Well, have it your own way.
One moment, Leslie. If you're really that anxious to give your sons a likeness to their mother, and I do think it's a touching sentiment, especially coming from you, why don't you have this one copied? Far more appropriate.
Dr. Rossi, did you have a close relationship with the deceased?
Yes, I did.
Is it a fact that you and she intended to get married?
Objection, Your Honor. The witness's relationship with the deceased is not relevant to this hearing.
But, Your Honor, it is relevant. It establishes bias, motivation, and prejudice.
Objection overruled.
Ann Howard's death upsets you a great deal, didn't it, Dr. Rossi?
Yes.
And you feel strongly that if she was murdered, her murderer should be punished.
Of course.
You previously testified that shortly after the funeral, you returned to her apartment. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, I object. Is all this necessary?
If I may be permitted to continue, Your Honor, perhaps my colleague might see the relevancy of my line of questioning.
Very well, Mr. Cord, but get to the point.
Who was with you that day in the deceased's apartment?
You were.
Would the witness please speak a little louder?
You were with me at Ann's apartment, Mr. Cord.
And you were convinced that Lee Weber killed Ann Howard, weren't you?
Yes.
That day in the deceased's apartment, you were very angry with me. Why?
Because you said she'd... Because you said Ann Howard had committed suicide.
Objection, Your Honor.
Objection sustained. Strike the question. Mr. Cord, you will come to my chambers immediately. You too, Mr. Fowler. Court is recessed for 5 minutes.
Of all the unprofessional, unethical tricks.
Exactly what do you think you're doing, Mr. Cord?
Defending my client, Your Honor.
Is that what you call it?
First of all, Mr. Cord, I will not have you tricking witnesses into verbalizing your opinions. Secondly, this is a preliminary hearing, not a murder trial, and not a free-for-all. You and your client don't have to do anything but sit and listen. John here has the burden of the proof, and that's all we're interested in. Is there sufficient evidence against Weber to warrant binding him over for trial?
So save your tricks for the trial. You'll need them.
Are you saying that Judge Chester should be kept in the dark regarding certain facts of this case?
Of course not.
Well, it's pretty safe to say you're not going to deal with the subject of suicide, and if I'm prevented from dealing with it, then...
Do you think you can prove that Ann Howard committed suicide?
As much as you can prove murder and then some. If I'm permitted to.
Do you plan calling witnesses to try to prove this?
Yes, sir.
You realize what you're doing, I trust. You're gambling that I'll dismiss the charges against Weber on the basis of evidence you introduce. And that's a pretty long-shot gamble, Mr. Cord.
I know that, Your Honor.
And if you lose, if I decide to bind Weber over for trial, you will have tipped your hand to John here. And he'll know exactly what he has to overcome in the trial to get a conviction.
I realize that too, Your Honor.
And you understand that even if you do get a dismissal, I can reopen the case against Weber any time.
Yes, I understand that.
Does your client understand this, too?
Yes, sir, he does.
Very well, Mr. Cord. I don't approve. But it's your privilege to reveal your defense. Your abusive handling of the witness, however, is another matter.
Apparently, the witness has some doubts about Lee Weber's guilt.
All right, he woke up this morning troubled, cautious, hair splitter. I can't help that.
Agreed. And you have no right to try and prevent me from making use of his doubts.
But I'm not going to sit by and let you trick him into presenting your theories as evidence.
Nor will I, Mr. Cord. You obviously have specific ideas on how to get your client dismissed from the indictment. It would be unfortunate indeed to deprive Lee Weber of the benefit of your counsel by reason of your improper conduct.
I understand, Your Honor.
Preview from the continuing story of Peyton Place.
Didn't you learn anything at your trial?
Let's talk about this courtroom and the defendant in this case, okay?
What do you want here, Rod? I mean, besides Lee Weber's head. Yes, Mrs. Cord was leaving. What could you expect her to do?
It's not a question of what I would expect her to do, Mr. Peyton. I'm interested in what you expect her to do.